Cool. Let's get started. Well, thank you so much to Prajay, Bharadwaj, Praveen, and Amarnath for having for being part of the panel where we are going to be discussing a lot about virtual production and how the transition to virtual production using real-time technologies like Unreal Engine is really impacting the industry. Now, before I get started, first of all, just a quick housekeeping stuff. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section of this portal. There's also a discussion button on the right-hand side where you can have like active discussion about the topics that we're talking about. We will, of course, have a few minutes before 6 o'clock local time, where we will open up the question. I'll take questions from the audience so we can ask the panelists. But until then, I will be the one asking the questions. So I am Arvind Nilakantan. I am the technical account manager and evangelist for Unreal Engine out of India and Southeast Asia. It's been about a year since I joined Unreal Engine, and prior to that, I've always been involved in film and animation using real-time technologies. So we have a fantastic panel of experts in the virtual production and in the new age of filmmaking space. So I will do that. I'll quickly just call out the names, and then you can just do the introductions yourself. And I'm just going to call out the names in the order I'm seeing it on my screen. So Prajay, so we have Prajay Kamath. So Prajay, why don't you just do a quick intro?
Hi guys, hi everybody. My name is Prajay Kamath. I'm the CTO at AI Solve. So we have a studio in UK, an LED stage, which we're coming up with. We call it Merge XR, which will be launching very soon. You'll hear it on LinkedIn and everywhere else. And we had our first shoot in Jan, so we are quite keen and looking forward to it. And using Unreal as our backbone. So I'll be glad to share today some of our thoughts and insights into what we have, what hurdles we have gone past. And I'm sure all my other colleagues would do that as well. So I'll leave it to them. Thank you, guys.
Cool. Thank you, Prajay. Next up is Bharadwaj from Virtual One. You want to say a quick intro?
Hello, everybody. This is Bharadwaj Dayala from Virtual One Studios, Hyderabad. Virtual One Studios is a specially formed company for promoting virtual production in India. And we are building up our own development center and virtual production studios also in Hyderabad. We want to specialize in digital content production, like feature film and web content and other all forms of digital content with using Unreal Engine as our base. So now that Unreal Engine has taken the stage as a virtual production de facto standard, so we've been initially working with Unreal Engine and with Ethics Association. We've been doing quite a lot of development the last 1.5 years. We've been working on it, and right now we are just about to start our own feature film using virtual technologies. And so this is a great platform to share our experiences along with other collaborators here. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Bharadwaj. We'll talk a lot more about that for sure. So next up, Praveen, you want to go?
Yeah, thank you, Arvind. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to meet you all and be a part of this VFX Summit. I'm Praveen Raj Jayachandran, and I'm the Managing Director of XR Factory and Holograph. We are basically a futuristic technology company, and virtual production is one of our verticals. We've been using Unreal for several other applications since 2016, and for virtual production since 2019. We've also successfully completed few projects in South India using both LED volumes as well as green screen. We are also working in real-time animation using facial and motion capture. We've also developed our own proprietary camera tracking solution for virtual production, which will be launched pretty soon. Thank you.
That's awesome. Great to see like products coming out of this region. So it's awesome. Next up, Amarnath.
Hey everyone, thanks Arvind. I'm Amarnath Murugan. I'm a researcher at the Immersive Media Experience Design Lab at IDC School of Design, IIT Bombay. So coming from a research lab that is led by Professor Jayesh Pillai, our research is usually oriented towards VR films and how people perceive VR films and how we can treat VR films in such a way that they can get the same similar set of cinematography rules that traditional films have established, and how would people watch such films. Furthermore, we have also conducted research on education and AR and how we can create affordable AR solutions in rural classrooms. I'm also the technical director at Manhole Collective, which is a group of artists that have come together to create real-time films, VR experiences that shows the plight of manhole scavengers and the experiences they go through. So I'm really excited to talk about our recent film Manhole and further talk about virtual production and how we moved from a research lab to production in such a short time. So
That's
I'm glad to be here.
it's a fantastic cause, and I hope the film gets highlights the plights of folks who are working in the manholes. So it's
Yes.
very noble, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right, so we'll get
Yes, yeah.
started with questions. So I'll let me start with some specific questions based on what you have introduced yourself as. So I'll start with Bharadwaj. So Bharadwaj, you of course mentioned that you're setting a very large lab in Hyderabad and you're working towards making a feature-length film. Now, how is virtual production impacting the decision making at a studio level for you? Because virtual production demands a new approach to budgeting and scheduling when you compare it with traditional workflows. Have you observed this and how do you address it? So maybe if you can elaborate on that, that will be fantastic.
Okay. So virtual production is an idea whose time has come. So we began with that, thinking that, okay, like any other technology, it's going to take some time to settle in, but it's going to be the future. So we understood that virtual production is going to be the future of content production, whether it's film or any kind of digital content. So we wanted to be the early adapters. So there's no stopping the revolution. We only have to adapt to it. So with that aim, we initially began with investing in research and development. So initially we set up a 50-seater development center in Hyderabad and we started researching on all the products that are available and both hardware and software. And then we started testing with various hardware developments that are going on. And we started working with you and Epic people. So they've been supporting us in finding out various solutions for various things. But essentially, when it comes to studios, virtual production still means different things to different people.
Correct. Yeah.
So some people think that virtual production is LED walled studio, and some people think virtual production is all AR and VR. So everybody is thinking in a different way. Nobody has a clue about what exactly is virtual production. So that's maybe a few more webinars like this will definitely guide them to what virtual production means to and what it can do for their production. So as a studio, what we are seeing is though there are many possibilities in virtual production, there are still a lot of limitations to be overcome. So other production houses, we've been working with other production houses also. We've been helping them. We were working on Canada superstar's deep film called Vikrant Rona, where we are using Unreal Engine as a base to develop a lot of scenes and even animation sequences there. So we are trying to get them educated on what is possible with virtual production and what is not. So as a studio, most of the production houses, everybody wants to do something in virtual production. So they say, okay, we want to do our next film in virtual production. So can we do that? So it's not about what you want to do, but it's about what the film actually trying to do
Correct.
something with virtual production.
Uh-huh.
So to educate them, it's going to take some time. And when they understand the limitations, and actually there are quite a few limitations and also quite a few possibilities, which cannot be done in real filmmaking. So they just need to think in a different manner. They just have to change their way of making films also. So that's what we've been trying to tell them. And then coming to budgeting and scheduling, there's another problem with Indian filmmakers. They do very little pre-production. Whereas the virtual film production is going to be mostly in the pre-production scenario. So the more time you spend in pre-production, even for a regular film also, the less time you spend in post. But Indian filmmakers, they just get on with the pre-production as fast as possible and they want to go on to the set. So here, virtual production will actually make them more disciplined in this aspect. So they are forced to spend more and more time in pre-production, understanding their film and how it is going to evolve during the next process of story discussion, short divisions, and storyboarding, and then pre-visualization, which are seen as optional subjects till now. They are going to take them as seriously, and they are going to use them in their actual film production also. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, virtual film production is actually making filmmaking a better profession. Like even with the people like Netflix and all, Hollywood studios coming into Indian film production, they are insisting on all these stages, like
Correct.
going through the pre-production stages and the pre-visualization. All this is becoming necessary. So virtual production is also entering into this stage. So it is going to force the regular filmmakers to think in different ways and make their pipeline better. So that's where decision process is also going to be slightly delayed sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to be better for all the stakeholders. Even for the producers, it's going to save them a lot of money and time. So they are everybody who comes to my studio is mostly producers. So they understand the benefits of going virtual. So they are asking us to do something in virtual. So that's a good scenario here. Budgeting wise, still that's a major problem even we are facing. Even we don't know how to budget it.
Okay. Okay.
Because sometimes minute of production is going to cost will be very cheap. Even sometimes even a few seconds of something is going to be very expensive.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it depends on the number of sets and assets involved. See, one more thing is people think that LED studio is all about virtual production. So they say, okay, we'll rent the LED studio. That's enough. No, so they are not understanding the stages of asset development and what's going to be projected onto the LEDs. So they
Correct.
are not much worried about that aspect, the development aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
that is where actually the money is going to go. So studio, you can just hire a studio for a day or two, but what are you going to project onto that LED? So that asset development is to be taken care of. So that is where the main money is going to be.
Actually,
And
that's actually a really good point. Like, you mentioned that product producers understand there's going to be money that could potentially be saved, but how do you budget
yeah,
for it? And I think that's a good segue. Maybe I could like ping Praveen about it, because
yeah,
Praveen, you have been like pioneering virtual production filmmakers in and around South India. And it's been like since almost 2019 that you mentioned, right? So can you maybe throw some light on that topic that Bharadwaj was talking about? Like, what are your efforts to educate and generate awareness about virtual production when you have producers and directors who are coming in from more traditional filmmaking background? Can you talk about that,
It's a
please?
brilliant question, Arvind. Honestly, it's been a roller coaster ride. It's fun, but a lot of hard work to do. Put in like any kind of transformation requires a lot of explanation, convincing, and approvals, right? So the million-dollar question in our mind was like, who do you start with? Like you
Mm-hmm.
have different kinds of people associated with production. For
Mm-hmm.
example, a production house, the director, or the DOP. Who do you approach first? So the production house was typically our client, right? But they wouldn't make decisions without consulting the directors. The director wouldn't decide without the approval of the DOP. The
Mm-hmm.
DOP wouldn't make a call without seeing something real, right? Without seeing
Right.
anything. How was he able to do it? It was tough to bring them all together for a live demo in the middle of their busy schedules. That was the most difficult part.
Hmm.
So we ended up setting a small green screen studio inside our office to make this happen so that you can call people at their convenience to come over and have a look into things. Having said that, they all have the same reaction after seeing the virtual production, like, a demo to the virtual production. It'll be like, wow. Typically, because the director gets to see the output almost instantly, and he can take on informed decisions in time, because typically in a production when they're like a green screen production where they just see what the actors are acting, but they don't see what is happening behind. But here they're able to see the whole
Mm-hmm.
picture. The DOP is able to see, get his angles right, The director is happy with whatever he sees on screen. So also, the production house understands the benefits of the above two things, like the director and DOP doing their job at the right time within the given time. It means it saves them a lot of money,
Yeah.
and the production is more streamlined. Now, this makes it a lot more easier. So, what we thought is we realized that education and exposure is the key to this digital transformation, and we are doing everything we could do to share our knowledge with the industry.
So I guess like more setting up a demo stage and showing what can be possible really works rather than just explaining in theory about what
Yeah.
virtual
Absolutely.
production is. That's cool. Like so I think Prajay, you have already gotten like knee deep, neck deep in virtual production, and you have like large teams that spanning UK, Europe, Singapore, and India who've been working on virtual production. So when you're doing this any kind of demo or even when you're getting into a production, how do you manage such teams? Can you talk about establishing some best practices and processes in virtual production, which of course is a broad term, and what are your learnings on that front, and what are some of the benefits that you have garnered from this kind of scenario?
Wow, that's so. I will talk more on the content side, and I'll not more on the hardware side of things, right? Because I feel content is the most important part right now. So we have had our own ups and downs in this field, and we have learned it the very hard way. We do have development teams offshore, like you said, and that's never really been a problem. I'm sure many of our companies also have offshore teams, but the problem we had was that our employees in the offshore team were actually fragmented. So they're all working from homes. And instead of having 4 offshore teams, I had like 100 guys working from various locations, different time
Right.
zones, and all of that stuff. So I must say, COVID really made us rethink on the way we work. But the silver lining is we have adapted and getting used to it now. The main barrier we incurred in our journey was the interdepartmental culture. So what I mean by that is that in one end we have game developers and game artists, and on the other hand we have artists who work for films. So marrying these two together and bringing them under one roof was a bit of a learning curve. Right from the way the models are made, textures are applied, even optimizing the individual scenes, because we had to find a common ground between these two revolting forces, in one place. Some people might think, oh, Unreal 5 is coming, so that's going to change everything for us, and we don't have to worry about anything. But then if I believe that if we get the fundamentals right and ensure our scenes are optimized, we can go a very long way when UE5 comes out. you know so in a traditional gaming company, all of our code base sits inside our source control system. So this is a big boon to us, but it was a bit of a learning curve for the artist whom we bought in from the VFX industry, not just because they work on binary files, but because they have their own pipelines and that they're common in major VFX houses for asset review, source control, and stuff like that. Unreal also has a multi-user feature, which I'm sure everybody knows and all of the audience knows as well. But they work really good in a closed LAN environment. So we did a test wherein we put a bunch of we made a VPN access to a few of our guys sitting all over the place and try to connect them together and try to see if we can work this out. But the biggest issue we had was latency, bandwidth, and then we had to basically shelf it. I'm sure in due course and time this will progress, and this will become a much better platform to do things, but as of now it is not the case. So the major deal breakers for us was people working from homes, internet connectivity, massive file sizes. I'm sure our folks here also would have we are working with 500 GB 1 TB data sizes, and the learning curve for use of a source control and asset review was quite important. So there's nothing much we can do with others, but the only thing we can make a difference was the source control part of it. So in the beginning, we were working with projects where multiple level designers, artists, and cinematic guys were working off the same branch in the source control. So it started out okay. As a project size grew and people switched places, we were waiting for a disaster to happen. So in fact, recently we had a meltdown on one of our projects, Arvind, and trust me, it's not a good place to be in. I mean, I was actually thinking when that happened, right? We should do a video or something like how not to do an Unreal project, and I think that's very
Maybe that
important
could be a thought. Yeah,
rather than
absolutely.
how to do things, how not to do is quite important. So anyways, coming back to the point, it's difficult. I'm sure each studio has different ways of doing things, and they have their own work patterns and structures and all of that stuff. But my advice would be that investing in a good source control, where it is, whether it is self-hosted or cloud-based, doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm not going to take any names. I'm not getting paid for it. But yes, good source control is quite important. But at the same time, ensuring everybody in your team knows how to use it is even more crucial, because especially the non-technical guys like our project managers and project leads, you know, a typical virtual production content project, I'm not talking about the hardware again, it's more on the content side of things. You have your level design, you have your animations, you have your FX, and of course cinematics. So our approach has been twofold in this matter. So what we tend to do was, so we have a source control that works very well with binary files. So all the artists and animators, and it also includes the asset review system. So this control, the source control, locks in an asset, the artist when it's worked upon, and stores cumulative updates of itself. And the art lead, once the art lead is happy with the asset, he then pushes it into the Unreal project. Now on the Unreal side, we have another source control where we have a main branch, and where the main Unreal project sits in, and then we have separate branches, one below the other, where for each department has its own branch of its own. So, for example, cinematics will have its own branch, FX will have its own branch, and animation will have its own branch. So, what the project leader now does is that he becomes a gatekeeper, making sure who pulls in from the main branch and who pushes into the main branch, because that's quite crucial, because we can't have people doing multiple pulls, and that's going to be a huge issue. So that said, in the Unreal project itself, we have another mini structure. So we have a persistent level. Say, for example, we have like a village location or a market location or something like that, and it has like 12 scenes to be shot, and with multiple shots within each scene. So what we would do is, in the persistent level, we'll have all of our level design. And then in each level below it, we'll have all of the scenes in individual levels. Like, for example, we can have cinematics scene 1, cinematic scene 2, cinematic scene 3, and so on and so forth. And same thing with animations and FX and all of that stuff. So what happens is, by doing this, our artists can actually work in parallel and independent and they're not dependent on each other. So at least to some extent, we actually have some of the project scenes. In fact, in one of the projects that we have, we're like hundreds of levels. It's good. It's quite thing to see it into so many levels. But then if you actually go through it, it actually is quite systematic, and it really works. So I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it, because it's all learning curve for us. But when it works, I mean, it's working for us. But we feel that we are progressing in this way, and we're finding newer ways and documenting a pipeline every path we take, so that when new teams come in, they're quite well informed. So as I said, so source control, subdivision of levels, and Unreal and foremost, I think this is and following the good practices, I think will really help avoid meltdowns. I mean, every studio has its own pipeline. I will be wrong if I say ours is the best, but learning from our mistakes and tweaking your pipeline is one of the most important things, whether you have a fragmented workforce or everybody sitting under one roof. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think it's extremely crucial, because I come from a gaming background, and for me, source control is like a no-brainer. And when you look at film industry, you have like 4 files which are named like 001 underscore final underscore really really final underscore final, right?
Yes.
So and that was mind-boggling, and so but of course artists don't work in such environments, and I think it's crucial that source control gets embedded into this industry. Of course, you have like source control having trouble with these large files, and we need to definitely figure a way around it. Would love to. I think we should definitely talk about that in length in a different talk, maybe, where you can talk about what to do and what not to do in Unreal. Actually, so when you talk about like artists and filmmakers and bridging the gap between game developers, I think I'll probably throw the question to Amarnath, right? Because for the Manhole project specifically, you worked on a ragtag team. You had like volunteers, you had people who are like just beginning to use Unreal Engine or who has never used Unreal Engine. So can you maybe talk about how you put this team together? How do you upskill newcomers and students who are coming in even during the production process, and then teach them while the train is running?
Yeah, of course. This has been a huge challenge for us. We, like you mentioned, we had people come in even till the last stage of the production process and learn Unreal and do modifications. So this project started out in January of 2020. During our department's 50th anniversary, we had one of our alumni, Abhishek Verma, show up as a invited guest. And he is a traditional 2D animator. And one of his recent films, Marshall Joel, won a national award, and he was talking about that. And that's when he met my professor, and we were able to show the research work we have been doing. And we've also made a couple of VR 360 live action films for the sake of research, as well as to test how production is going to be for those sort of films. And he was pretty interested in the project because he has also been researching on manual scavenging and how people go inside the manhole and the level of support they don't get. They usually go in without any protective gear, and people are nobody cares about this when they walk on the road, and you don't really enter a manhole yourself. So how do you translate that experience to someone and then create empathy for them? And VR experience made sense in that case because you're able to put someone in their shoes and then show them what it's like to enter a manhole. And that's how the project started out. We started pre-production somewhere in March. We had some initial tests in a different game engine where we created a small VR experience where the person is able to go inside a manhole. And that was enough to convince the director, Abhishek Verma, to actually take this project forward. So again, he's from a traditional background. We are researchers, and starting production, we had no idea how to go ahead because we didn't have an established studio to guide us. So it was up to us to figure it out. So for starters, we found an animation student who's experienced with 3D, and he started translating our director's screenplay into 3D animation in Maya. And earlier, we couldn't bring it into game engines per se, so all the pre-production was limited to Play Blast from Maya. So even that was difficult to translate between the director and other stakeholders about how it's finally going to look like. I figured that is where Unreal made a huge difference because when we shifted our pipeline to Unreal and then we were able to bring in our assets and bring in random characters, that made a difference in communication. So that was a huge help for us. But also, we have been doing pre-production till January of this year, and we were looking for opportunities to turn this into a VR experience. But that itself brings its own set of challenges because it's going to be in real time, and we have to optimize all our assets, and that would mean that realism isn't really easy to bring in at that point. And that's when we heard about Unreal Short Film Challenge, and we thought, hey, why don't we use a traditional film first to bring the idea out first, and then see if we can translate that to a VR experience. So that also meant that during the process of the traditional film, we had to build our assets in such a way that it can be used in a VR experience in future. So we have to take into account the textile density, the poly count, and all those details. And I have some experience with 3D art, but our 3D artists haven't used game engines to a larger extent. We brought in a studio named Decor from Delhi who are happy to help us out, in spite of the lack of funds, because again,
so how did you train them? How did you train the new people who are coming in on this front?
The training provided by Unreal helped to some extent, and also there were a couple of people who had some experience with Unreal, but a lot of it was figured out during calls. It was a learning experience for me as well, coming from a different engine. So I think upskilling people took a lot of effort and time, and there were a lot of mistakes made. So that's how we learned, I guess.
No, I'm talking about specifically when you say upskilling people is difficult. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
But so how did you do that? Did you sit with them on their laptops or machines and then show them? But then you also had the pandemic, so I'm guessing everyone was working remotely. So did you just throw the problem at them and then have them figure it out? And did they figure it out, or did you have to hand guide them or instructor lead them about during the upskilling process?
There was a bit of both. They were able to figure out things to some extent. In fact, Unreal was user-friendly enough for people to just pick up some parts by themselves if they've used a DCC. And otherwise, we also had a separate Discord server with channels for each part of the production, where people can ping us and let us know which specific issue they're having trouble with. So we can quickly jump on a voice channel and just the relevant stakeholders can discuss the details. So if there is some issue with environment assets or the lighting, I go in and then help them out, or they are able to tell me at least, hey, these are the possible solutions and what would work for a future pipeline. Okay. And we decide based on that.
That's pretty good. I think when you're working with folks who are new to the industry itself and students, I think I at least see a keenness to figure out the problem rather than just saying like, I know the solution, I'm not going to go back to a previous methodology, I guess. So it's pretty good. I'm kind of glad that that the manual scavenging is getting highlighted through your film, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. So so thanks for that, by the way, everyone. Let me go on to kind of touching upon the topics that you had, and I'll pretty much have like anyone take up the next question, which is, of course, in like Praveen mentioned, in 2019, virtual production really took off. Like we were seeing significant attention to it in 2019 and 2020 even. But we're all talking about the pandemic, so it seems like the pandemic has introduced a greater sense of urgency and really accelerated the uptake. Like Prajay mentioned, suddenly you had like remote teams, but at least you could get work done. So can someone like maybe speak to that, and what does it really mean to the future of filmmaking?
I actually, if I can go first, I have a different view to this, Arvind, because
Sure.
yes, pandemic has accelerated the urgency slightly, but in my view, I think the merging of gaming and filmmaking was almost inevitable. I think that was sure to happen, whether there is pandemic or no pandemic, and I think one of the reasons being is because. The compute power, especially the GPU power, has increased significantly in the past 1 2 years. We have the 3090s and we have rumors of the 40s series coming out very soon. And secondly, the popularity of OTT and other digital channels. Even pre-pandemic, the demand for content consumption has increased significantly. I mean, producing quality and cost-effective content is no longer an option. It is here to stay. So whether it's a Bollywood production or a Hollywood production, a £100 million production, they want it done in £20 million. That's the whole point, and that's the mantra that's going to go for long now. I'm thanks that Unreal has done a bulk of the heavy lifting for us, so that we can focus more on the application side of it. Because now for the future for all is perfecting and pushing the creative boundaries in real time filmmaking and getting that quality and the ROI. That's a balance that we have to work with. And like um, um, uh, Bharadwaj was mentioning, costing it out is quite difficult, and because we ourselves never know, because you get these quotes in, and then you think, okay, I'll put one cinematics guy, I'll put two artists, and then I'll cost it out, and then you never know, something else comes up, and the more, but I think it's just down to us taking the hit, whatever happens,
Yeah.
and actually there must be a forerunner, right? Somebody has to run forward first and take some hits, a few hits, few blows here and there before things are perfected out.
Yeah, it's actually a good point. Like when Bharadwaj mentioned that
Yeah,
with
even I agree with Prajay, because we started well before COVID happened. So the hardware and software technologies are coming to a place where we can afford them, and also the quality was good enough for cinema. Till now, yeah, everything was happening in digital spheres, but the quality was not up to the mark. Game level wise, okay, but for films it was not up to the level. But then Unreal came in, and all the things happened, and also the Nvidia card, new card came in, and so somebody can actually develop or make a film on a laptop now, and send it over to an OTT platform. If it is for a screen, it may not be suitable, but for an OTT, like Prajay said, it's a very much the
It's a
same. Whether
no-brainer.
you make it with a 100 crore film or even $100 film, it's not going to make much difference on the OTT. So the consumers' ideas have changed. Consumer where the consumption is happening is changed. The hardware technology has changed, and right then the Unreal Engine came up with promising the quality that even Hollywood can adapt to it. So that all changed the whole thing, and
so,
then Corona happened.
Yeah.
so I guess what I hear is that regardless of the pandemic or not, it was going to
Yeah.
happen anyway. So
Yes.
I
Anyways,
guess
yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
we're just there already.
Absolutely. I
Uh,
just want to add a point here, Arvind. Actually, pandemic is paid way. Like there was a little bit of resistance from the production houses to try something, experiment something new. That was always existing. When we start off in 2019, when we used to go talk to them about this, they'd be like, "Hey, I haven't seen any movie come out of this now." Now, can you show something substantial to validate whatever you're saying? No, that's something which we didn't have at that point in time, because we had to start creating our own show reels to do that. So I feel like pandemic, what it's done is that it has forced filmmakers to find new ways to create films. That's happened. That's the push that pandemic has fortunately given us. And then that has led to increased adoption rate of virtual production. Now, I would, in my opinion, virtual production isn't here, like isn't a passing trend. It's here to stay, right? So I'll come up with a couple of points where I feel like this is here to stay, because virtual production is a medium that allows filmmakers to think beyond then probably what could be done previously. They're able to do much more than what they were able to do now, or before. Now, and second point is, people who have actually tried it, right? They've clearly understood the benefits of virtual production. They understand how the pipelines, the virtual production pipeline, is much more superior than the traditional pipelines, because it gives them a more flexibility. It gives them I'd say they take more informed decision, because most of the job is done in pre-production, right? So the process is followed. If the process is not followed, then the production day becomes a mess. So in order to follow the process is the most difficult thing. In my opinion, I always say that film industry has been an organized chaos. So if they follow the process, then there is savings at every point in time, and there's more control in every point in time. So virtual production is the answer to most of the problem statements that we're facing in the industry today.
Got it. Yeah, I think Bharadwaj kind of mentioned that, right? Like, pre-production requires discipline, and OTTs demand that kind of discipline. And fortunately, Unreal also gets you the render quality that kind of suits OTTs. So I think it's all kind of falling in place, and you have the pieces of the puzzle coming together. So let's then talk about that, right? So, you are talking about virtual production. So where do you see it evolving? Is it like you have the pieces, or is it already evolved? Do you already see it there? Where do you see it going? And what aspects of the future that you foresee is most exciting for you? It's an open question. Anyone want? It's up for grabs.
If I have to take a dig at that, right, Arvind, I think the advent. So there's many companies here. I'm sure Praveen and so many other guys. They've worked on AR and VR and all of that stuff. Bringing that XR aspect to virtual production is and making more real time content. With in-camera VFX and all of that stuff for broadcast is, I think, where the future is, because people don't want to see. They want to see Hollywood style VFX on a real-time television show. That'd be really cool. That's the next gen. What do you call of film of what or television shows that happen on set. Right now we have things like softwares that can do that job. But they're again mediocre, very green screen, remove the background, key the background and slap in something there, and that's about it. But there's not much out there where you can do some real-time graphics, real-time VFX in live television or even in a stadium or whatever it is. I think going that route, I think there's a lot more things to be done. And I think that's where I feel, at least for the broadcast side of things, is where a lot of future is. And also the advent of interactive films. Netflix did try out some of these interactive films, right? I've forgotten the names. Bandersnatch. Yes. But that was more of choose the right one, left or right, and then you just say a yes or a no, and you keep going. But yeah, having more controls and really getting the gaming kind of feel in a movie would be really good, or bring a movie into a game would be really amazing. I think that's where we should all be looking at.
That's actually where we are also focusing. Interactive films is going to be a new trend, and also now we have the technologies to make it happen. Even Netflix is trying quite a few things. And so even Unreal can push a few things to make it take the gaming to television. And so this interactive gaming and interactive cinema is going to be the next in thing. The broadcast will anyway, it's already happening, and XR is going to be a kind of a de facto standard for all esports and other things. Filmmaking definitely will use virtual production where it is necessary, but this kind of a new channel that is opening up with interactive gaming and interactive cinema.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
think
So,
our
yeah.
In my
sorry.
opinion, like I'm sorry, please go ahead, Prajay.
No, Praveen, go on. Sorry. Go.
No, in my opinion, I said the virtual production is just not about LED volumes or green screen studio shoots, right? So it can be used for previs, animated films, marketing campaigns, education content, kids content, and of course feature films. So the possibilities are endless. There might be new possibilities that might be coming up down the road. The thing is here, like as more and more people embrace virtual production and include it at some point in some level in their production pipeline, I feel like the industry will get more exposed to the process. Once this happens, consequently the challenges will get solved at a faster rate. So that this will increase the adoption rate also. So I believe larger adoption is the answer to most of the challenges we face today. Once it happens collaboratively, you're going to produce content at a faster rate. You're going to solve problems at a faster rate. So it will accelerate the whole process, and in the end, we are sure to produce some high quality films at affordable cost.
That's cool.
Adding on to
Amarnath, you were going to
that,
say something. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, so adding on to Praveen's point, yes, I've seen virtual production democratize filmmaking a lot, especially those with animation and VFX shots. If you notice the recent trend in YouTube, if you follow Corridor Crew, they've been putting out this series called Son of a Dungeon, where they have a basic green screen setup and they're able to use Unreal and virtual production to bring out good quality content. There's also this concept of VTubers that is popular now. People are able to use metahumans with mocap and then put out real-time video clips. So a lot of the tech that has been previously very expensive or needs proprietary equipment has been brought onto mobile, like facial capture, and there is VCam from Unreal, which lets you use your phone's camera to do tracking for animated shots. So I see mobile becoming a tool that will democratize filmmaking in future, because with LiDAR and more scanning tech coming into mobile and processing power increasing, you will be able to create high quality content. Just anybody would be able to do it. So that is pretty exciting for me. And also, in terms of tech, I see 4 avenues where things will change in future and be more exciting. So first is capturing. Right now, you need like a huge light stage to capture people, but I see light field tech emerging as a good solution in future, where you'll have a cheaper option to capture people, their expressions, which meant that you have 4D videos that are more accessible. And furthermore, tracking. Right now, you also need specialized lighthouses to track objects and certain tech. But if you follow the recent research papers that are coming out in SIGGRAPH and CVPR, they're able to track just based on RGB videos. So that would mean that a lot of match moving work from VFX would be removed, and the capturing itself would allow you to add on objects to the videos. The videos easily. So VFX pipelines will definitely shift a lot, at least with match moving, compositing, and adding objects on top of existing videos.
Yeah, I mean, that's a trend that we're seeing. Like that's kind of what happened in the gaming industry a few years ago, where rather than AAA studios with hundreds of people coming together to make a game, you saw like indie game developers who were able to get into smaller teams of like 4 or 5 people, or even individuals coming in and making games. And like Prajay said, games and filmmakers is kind of like joining today. And I think you're absolutely right, Amarnath, in that I think we'll see more and more indie filmmakers who with more affordable content, but at the same time high quality visuals coming out of it. I think we'll see more and more of that. And I think that's definitely something that I'm excited about. So maybe we'll just take a step back, right? And we've been talking about virtual production. But what is the advantage of virtual production over traditional workflows? Because people have been making films that looks amazing for a long time. So why even use virtual production? What are the advantages of it? If you can maybe elaborate on that, that will maybe give some context about it.
If done well, it will reduce the cost by a great factor, and it will increase the quality by a great factor.
I see. Okay, that's interesting, right? Because in my experience, what I've seen is the cost reduces for sure, but it's mostly that I would say cost probably maybe shifts to pre-production rather than on post. Like it's not probably like same $100 movie, but it's just like moving the $100 or the $90 in pre-production rather than is that has that been the experience for you
So
too?
it's
But
bad news for VFX
initially
houses.
it will be little bit costlier. Initially, little bit costlier it will be, but as we go on, the cost will reduce because the hardware costs are also very high at this point of time. But
Got it.
as we go on, it will reduce. So I think it is going to be okay
Okay.
that way.
So Prajay, you were saying something?
I was just saying it's bad news for VFX houses unless they latch on to this, right? Because there's no more. There'll be a little bit of post, not much of post. It'll be all everything in pre. So, anyways,
Hmm.
I think also like what Praveen mentioned earlier, it's also the control, the creative control the director gets on set. That's also a significant point to be noted because as much as the cost is a part of it, I think because normally when directors do their green screen shots, they're heavily reliant upon their VFX supervisor. And sometimes directors, some of the directors I have worked with, they don't even know how VFX works, how green screen works, and sometimes you get these shots that come up which needs a lot of cleaning, and you end up rotoing each and every frame, and that's a very expensive process. So I think like Praveen rightly mentioned earlier, the creative control the director can get on set is also one of the most important options.
Got it.
Just to add on to what Prajay and Bharatwaj already told, I feel like real-time feedback is one of the major advantages is virtual production because it's like whether it's shooting against LED walls or green screen, creating animated content, whatever it might be, getting to see how all different elements of the film interact in one environment and against each other, right? That's something which has not been happening previously. Now here, it's like, I mean, it happens in a live shoot, but when it comes to virtual, it's completely different, right? So you get real time feedback. That improves, that gives a greater strength of control to the directors and the production houses and everybody involved in the shoot.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely true. Like I was in a shoot a few months ago, before the pandemic hit. Wow, it's been 2 years now. 2 years ago, when I was at the shoot, and we were using virtual production techniques, and that was the director was shooting against live action folks, and there was like animals kind of just trying to attack this main character, and all of the animals obviously was in CG, and I saw the light like light in the director's eye go up like, damn, I can actually direct the tiger. I didn't know I could do that. Awesome. So yeah, absolutely. I think that is a big advantage that you get out of virtual production. For virtual production itself is a very broad term, but I think using real time feedback is definitely one of the advantages. Um, we have 10 more minutes. So, given this platform, because there's the VFX Summit, we have some of the best, all the folks from the industry kind of just watching this summit, either real time or recorded. So, given this platform to speak directly to the VFX and film industry, what roles and skills are you looking for as you build out a virtual production team or teams in your own studios?
For us rather, it's more individuals with versatile talents. So this is becoming more and more eminent, and it's quite important because it's no more like a 3D artist. He must be able to do a 3D artist should be able to do a little bit of level design, should know a little bit of cinematics, should also know a little bit of animation. So he must have a versatile talent. He may be good at one thing, but yeah, knowing everything is also quite important. And I think that's what we are looking in for, and especially when we get people in, we put them through the Unreal course structure and make sure they go through all the modules in 3 or 4 weeks. They do it, and then we bring them back to and put them onto task. So they must have that cross sector understanding, whether they're coming from a film background or from the gaming background. And this is key because that brings the best creative inputs from these guys and into the technology. So versatility and quick learning, I think, is what we would look for in our teams.
Yeah, even the integration of all these softwares, the special effects and visual effects, Nuke and Houdini, and all these softwares into Unreal Engine through plugins, it's making it essential for even if you are a specialist in Houdini, you need to know how to send it to Unreal and how to get it back from Unreal to corrections also. So that pipeline setting it is going to be very essential. And like Prajay said, we are also training all our VFX artists and 3D artists in Unreal Engine first, and then they are going to work on. Even our cinematographers, they are being trained in Unreal Engine sequencer, at least sequencer part of it. So they know how to use their cameras and how to use the film back and lens settings and how to move the camera. So everybody need to have a basic understanding of Unreal Engine and virtual production pipelines. And we'll still need all the specialists either on 3D or VFX. They are going to be very useful still, and their art is going to be very useful. So it is not going to change anything. They just need to adapt to new ways of working.
Got it. Okay.
And,
To add to Prajay and please go on.
So yeah, speaking from my experience, of course, it's a given that you need a strong modeling team, texturing team, plus gameplay programmers. But apart from this, I have noticed a lack of graphics programmers and technical artists. And these two talents make a huge difference in any production. Of course, Unreal Engine gives you like a really good base, but eventually every production is going to hit the limits of Unreal. And that's when you need your own custom shaders and then someone who can create a program for the smooth pipeline between Houdini and Unreal. And that's where you have these people who exist at the bridge between art and tech. And you need graphics programmers, of course, to figure out the colors are looking right and for custom shaders and to create your own graphics pipeline if you need stylization. And that is a very, that talent I haven't noticed like in abundance.
I think I would 100% agree with you, Amarnath. And I just want to plug in something right here. One of the folks that we're working with is Vivek Reddy from Viga Labs, Viga Entertainment out of Bangalore, and he has started a SIGGRAPH chapter in Bangalore. That's to attract the exact kind of talent that you're looking for, because graphics programmers are something that's, I think, very vital to understand and help debug problems, because you are, of course, working on a graphics engine, which is Unreal Engine. So I think you bring up a really good point. And just to plug, if anyone is interested to kind of explore graphic artistry skills or graphic programming skills and technical artistry, definitely check out the SIGGRAPH chapter out of Bangalore. So with that, sorry, Praveen, you were saying something?
Yeah. So I feel like to adapt to this new age filmmaking, we need to look at the entire process from a completely new perspective, like which might require a certain amount of unlearning and relearning, which means because the whole thing happens in Unreal at the end of the day. No matter what kind of software you've been using before, no matter what it is, you will have to adapt to Unreal in order to achieve certain things here. So the pipeline changes completely. So which means that there's going to be a certain amount of unlearning and then relearning, right? So and apart from that, I feel like I agree with what Prajay said. We need professionals who can balance both creative and technical aspects of virtual production. It's no more just about being creative or just technical. It needs a combination of both in order to fit into the shoes of working in Unreal. And most importantly, the industry as such needs fresh minds that can bring creative ideas to the table, because everything is going to be happening within the engine, most of the thing, if not. So we need some fresh minds coming in and giving a lot more ideas. It's not like, say, one person decides something. It needs to be very collaborative. We need to take opinions of a lot of people to explore possibilities here.
So I guess to kind of sum up the what you're looking for in the industry is like generalists or people with versatile skills. You also need people who are open-minded to unlearn and learn their skills, and of course, tech artists and graphics programmers who can actually get magic happening on the screen when you hit a roadblock, I guess. So, sorry, Prajay, you were saying something?
Yeah. Plus, they should love Red Bull and work more than 8 hours a day.
A lot of caffeine. Yes, I agree with that. Yes. I guess when you're working remotely, it's even more important. All right. So my last question, we are like 5 minutes in, and maybe it's something that you could crib about virtual production, right? What would you like to see happen with virtual production in the future? Like, what are some of the things that you have a problem with today that we could solve as an industry, or something that you could throw at Unreal, maybe, considering that it is, of course, in the cornerstone of it. Um, what would really take it to the next level?
Standardization.
Standardization on what?
Pipeline,
Pipeline.
software, hardware.
Mhm.
So as soon as we can make a standard, see, we are going to use a multiple integration of technologies in virtual production, but those multiple also need to have each one as an option. So
Mhm.
if we have the basic platform with Unreal Engine, and you can use this hardware, with this software, you can make a virtual production. So
Mhm.
that with that de facto standard, people will evolve, and things will evolve, and some people will develop their own softwares and their own hardwares also. But if we have a standard platform for virtual production, it will take up very rapidly, and
Mhm.
people will be able to use it much easier.
I think
I,
we
I,
already
I
have Unreal as Unreal has been democratizing the whole industry as such.
Yeah.
I think it's about in contrary to what Mr. Bharatwaj told. I feel like the industry is actually exploring possibilities here. Every company is trying out with coming up with their own pipelines, different pipelines. Probably, I still remember Prajay saying in another meeting where people are going to end up selling their pipelines as a service. So
Mhm.
that's a possibility in the future. So I think it opens up. The market is opening up now, and we should be open to explore possibilities which will, put us in a better place in the future.
Mhm.
I think we need Unreal for Dummies. You know that book you used to get. So we need something like that, wherein how to make an animation movie, how to make and so that there is some kind of a standard which it's not necessary that we have to follow that, but at least we know that if you follow that path, you're not going to get stuck or you're not going
Yeah.
to get hit.
Mhm.
And then obviously we can improvise and take it on. Because right now we're learning it the hard way. So. Um,
Yeah.
And
So,
speaking, yeah.
sorry, Amarnath, go on.
Speaking of features that might help later on, that is, it'd be great if dynamics can be integrated into Unreal in a better way, because we have
Mhm.
rendering that is used to be rasterization but is now using ray tracing, so that the quality is somewhat reaching the level of path tracing, but dynamics are a bit missing, like fluid sims and then rigid, soft body dynamics, volumetric sims. And these are something that every film tends to use at some point, and that is difficult to achieve right now. So it would be better if it's an integrated tool that exists and can give realistic results.
Absolutely. I think that also kind of falls into Bharadwaj's original point, which is standardization, right? You have fluid sims which has to be brought in as an alembic, and then you have
Yeah,
FBX files, you have Maya files, you have whatever files. I think USD is trying to do that, which is the Universal Screen Descriptor format, which helps you kind of bring this kind of sort of standardization. But yeah, I think pipelines, and I hear you, Prajay. I've been harping about this for a few years now, which is if there's a set pipeline, which is why the film industry in India, for example, works really well, is because the outsourcing market is just like, here's a pipeline, dump it, just do this, right? Don't No need to do discovery. And I think, yeah, absolutely, standardizing assets and standardizing pipelines. I really think it will take you. It will accelerate the adoption of virtual production. And of course, feature requests like
Yeah.
fluid dynamics and simulation. I think it's inevitable. It'll come in anyway. I think, and I know for a fact that that Unreal is working on that. So with that, it's we have a minute. We have something in discussion. Okay. All right. So we have it done. Just checking to see if there's any Q&A. It looks like we touched upon all the points that everyone is just like, wow, they're like no questions, like amazing. So that's kind of how it is. It looks like. So So I want to thank all of you, Prajay, Bharadwaj, Praveen, and Amarnath, for being part of this panel and taking your time off your busy schedule to discuss about virtual production. Hopefully, by the next time we meet at the VFX Summit next year, there'll be leaps and bounds of work that you have done that you can also show off, and it's not just going to be about discussions, and it'll be maybe a retrospect of the projects that you have done. So once again, thank you very much, and hope all of you enjoyed this panel and garnered insights of this industry. And I hope you have a good rest of the VFX Summit. Take care and have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Cheers. Bye.